Qualcomm's management team is very happy with its success so far in the PC industry from their recent push to enter that market. Also, I'll talk about the company's prospects for smartphones, specifically how it's doing in the China segment, given the subsidy the government in China added in January of 2025. So we'll talk about those two things in this video. Let's get started. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now. Qualcomm's CEO saying that they're very happy with the trajectory they are on with PCs. They expect to get $4 billion in Windows PC revenue by 2029. And that's an entirely new segment for the company that only recently started developing systems that go into personal computers. The company has gained market share already, saying that the data shows that the sale within the United States of U.S. retail laptops above $800, they already have a more than 10% market share, which is consistent with the projection we made and how we're going to grow in the 5 years. And we like this metric early on in the process. So already the signs indicate they are on track to hit this target of $4 billion in Windows PC revenue by 2029. And this will do a couple of things for Qualcomm. First, of course, it adds $4 billion in revenue in a category that's pretty lucrative if you look at the profit margins that Intel and AMD are able to generate in this category. Over the previous, let's say you can look at it between 2010 and 2019, before all the disruptions from COVID, pretty healthy profit margins, north of 20% operating margins in this segment. So gross profit margin is likely much higher than that. So a good margin business, massive category, not growing, right? It's already pretty mature category, but Qualcomm can gain market share because of the opening that Intel has left in this category because of Intel's struggles. And so that's one thing that it'll provide Qualcomm is billions of dollars in revenue at pretty high profit margins on the one side. On the other side, it diversifies Qualcomm's business, right? It had been very concentrated in generating revenues from the handset or smartphone market. And so this new category diversifies the business, which lowers risk. When you have diversified revenue streams, it lowers risk for the business because if there should be something to happen to the smartphone market, let's say it gets disrupted by some wearable device, like people all of a sudden have glasses that they use also as phones and they no longer want smartphones and the category starts declining, right? I'm just giving a hypothetical risk scenario. Qualcomm's business won't be as damaged if it has this other segment that's also generating billions of dollars in revenue. And at $4 billion, it'll be a considerable percentage of the overall business. I'm estimating that should be over 25% of the company's revenue in 2029. Actually, they're thinking that their revenue is going to grow much faster. They're saying it's going to be $4 billion out of $35 billion in revenue that they expect to generate in 2029. And I expect that percentage share will continue rising as the company matures in this category. So the first wave of customer they went after was the consumer, right? And there's two sides of the PC market. There's the consumer side and the enterprise side. The first part is they want to go after the consumer side. Now they're starting to look for commercial business. And that's why they have an emphasis of showing a lot of commercial applications now native on the Snapdragon platform, the Snapdragon system, from VPN, from security, etc. And by having native applications on their systems, that's going to make the applications run more smoothly, be more optimized for the Qualcomm Snapdragon system. So already they've gained this market share in the consumer category with laptops above $800. It's reasonable to assume that they can gain similar market share. Well, not similar, but it's reasonable to assume that they can find ways to serve that customer segment, the commercial customer segment, and gain a meaningful market share in that category as well. All right, so moving on to the discussion about their handset business. Specifically, they were talking about the China business, and they said as it relates to the subsidy, which, if you're not already aware, the government in China announced a subsidy to help customers buy smartphones that started in January of 2025. They just began in January. And so Qualcomm doesn't have a lot of data from that subsidy, and they'll have a better view of it next quarter. But they are expecting to get a boost from that. So another reason why they're optimistic about the smartphone business is the content increase year over year that we've discussed in detail as more capability gets added to the chipset that's going into these phones. And that's showing up in their price points. So they're selling higher price points than they were last year because the manufacturers are putting more content, more capability into the smartphones. And then secondly, they're also selling more volume that they saw year over year. So they're selling more units, and each unit they're selling is coming at a higher price per unit. So they're getting the benefit, they're getting that two-sided benefit in their chipset business. They went on to say that they saw higher end consumer demand in China for premium devices. And if you think about how that happens, it's a long-term trend that they've seen in China that the premium tier continues to grow, and it's a benefit that showed up in the quarter as well. And this is something not exclusive to the China market. I've heard this from several companies that operate in the smartphone market. They've been talking about consumers opting for more premium smartphones. And in fact, just a few days ago, I was reviewing the latest earnings call transcripts from Apple. And Apple CEO Tim Cook said a similar thing, that their customers are choosing more premium iPhones when they're going out to buy the iPhones. And so this is a trend that's happening not only in China, but for the rest of the world. And it's something that has to do with artificial intelligence to some degree, but also just because people are using their smartphones so much more than, let's say 5 years ago or 3 years ago when the previous cycle came in, right? 2020, 2021 was when a large amount of smartphones were purchased. And fast forward to today, these smartphones are more capable and people are using them more and more. And so now in this upgrade cycle, people are saying, you know what? I'm using my smartphone so much. Why don't I go ahead and splurge on the more expensive phone, because I'm going to be on it for so many hours every day, every week, every month for the rest of the year, for the next 3 to 4 years. Let me just go ahead and get something for, $100 more or $200 more. And that way I can be more effective when I'm on my smartphone, or I can have a more enjoyable experience when I'm on my smartphone. And so that's another reason why Qualcomm is optimistic about its prospects in the smartphone market. So those are two things I wanted Qualcomm stock investors to know about the recent developments inside the company, recent developments in two of very important markets, a new up and coming market for Qualcomm and its legacy business, the core category for Qualcomm, which is smartphones. Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce that my book is finally available for sale. I've been working on it for more than a year now, so I'm really excited to finally share this with you now. It goes through my framework for evaluating stocks. Some of you often ask why I like this stock or why I like the other stock, and this framework provides you the things that I look at when I'm evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.